And Skylar, I will need you to do some reading and handle the speakers.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's let people get connected here, and then I'll kick it back to you in just a second. Okay. Looks like almost everybody is connected. Okay. Hi, folks. Thanks for being patient with us. We were just working through some technical difficulties with getting video running for our board members. And now that I think we've rectified that as best as possible, we're ready to start the meeting. So I'm going to turn the time over to Mike, who's going to be running the meeting for a few minutes until board president arrives. Go ahead, Mike.
Be fine. I apologize for not having any video tonight. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item, declaration of potential conflict of interest. Director Bodner.
No conflict.
Sue.
No conflict.
Conflict. Who am I missing? Erica.
No conflict.
No conflict. We're waiting for Catherine. Thank you very much. Today we have a special recognition of the SEPRD Employee of the Month, and I'd like to introduce to you and recognize Zoe Manhire, who has been a very long time employee, and she has worked for 3 different directors at this time and has been around forever and has done such fantastic work. She is a dedicated employee of the district. As I said, for many years, she has shown great leadership in the aquatics department with a vast amount of knowledge and expertise in exercise. Zoe is dedicated to enriching the quality of life for all patrons and always goes above and beyond in making sure all patrons are safe and healthy. Thank you for all your hard work, Zoe. Did she make it to the meeting tonight?
I don't see her, Mike, but I do want to add, Zoe's one of our longest tenured employees. She's worked for the district
Absolutely.
For about 22 years. So it's she's a great resource and an asset and has great perspective after holding many positions, working for many different departments for SEPRD.
Thank you. Also, I guess there's supposed to be recognition of the board vice president and secretary, Michael Hinton.
Yeah,
no,
Mike,
I got this certificate that it says 19 years. That doesn't seem possible since I wasn't on the board for every minute, but it seems like it. I appreciate the gesture of and recognition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. We were able to nominate you for an award with SDAO, and this was their acknowledgement of that.
Really?
Their acknowledgement of that award, and yeah, just grateful for your years of service to the district as a volunteer, and at least 10 concurrent years as a member of the board. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm pretty surprised, but you know, it's interesting being on the board and you know, working with 3 different executive directors, the general manager Mary Blake, and then Justin Cutler, and now Skylar Archibald. I hope things don't change again. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of board minutes. We have minutes for the meeting of December 15th, and December 28th, and the board workshop on January the 5th. We could look at these minutes one at a time. I would welcome review and motion of review of the minutes for December 15th.
I move to accept the minutes for December 15th.
And I second.
Any discussion, comments? Erica? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I will also vote, even though I'm the chair tonight. So, thank you. The minutes for December 28th. Trust you've reviewed those. I would welcome a motion to approve those.
Like to make a motion to approve the minutes of December 28th.
Well, Skylar, did you fix the spelling under board action for Celeste's last name?
I did. Sorry, Celeste, I misspelled your last
Okay.
name.
So then I would second.
Okay. Without any other comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. And also the board workshop meeting minutes for January the 5th.
I move that we accept the board workshop minutes for January 5th.
And I will second.
Very good. All those in favor, please signify aye.
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 Aye. Wow. Unanimous. Thank you. We're now going to enter into the public comment period. Scotty, would you please read the rules of decorum?
Yes, I will. Just 1 second, pulling it up.
Skylar, I would like to be heard tonight. You let me in late, so please put me on the list for public comment.
And so would I. Nobody asked about that yet.
Yeah, we're just now getting to that portion of the agenda, so hang on just 1 sec. In advance of the public comment period, the Board of Directors wishes to extend a thank you to citizens who participate in providing feedback to the district. It is an important goal of SEPRD's public meetings to encourage discourse and engagement from our communities. It is important we hear the voices and concerns of citizens in order to best serve them. However, it is also imperative we maintain a respectful and productive environment that allows all voices to be heard. To this end, each speaker, we ask that you agree to the standard rules of decorum, which are available on the district website or in the SEPRD lobby. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak, and we'll take names for public comment. I'll put those names down, and then as we call you out, you'll be allowed to offer public comment. So I know we have John, Marty. I saw other folks would like to offer public comment.
Yes, Skylar, this is Patrick. I'd like to speak, please.
Okay, gotcha, Patrick. Any other folks? Okay, give me just a sec, Mr. Vice Chair, and I will put the timer up on the board. Your first speaker will be John Huisman, followed by Marty Weiss, and Patrick Duacek will be the final public comment speaker, at least right now. So 1 second. Okay, go ahead, John.
Now that you've purchased Broadway Middle School, I've got 2 questions. First of all, what will it cost? Now, if you'd actually done due diligence, you'd know what it's going to cost. Due diligence has 2 parts. One is figuring out what's wrong with the building, and the second is figuring out what it's going to cost to fix it to make it actually usable for the uses that you have in mind. Well, we've learned a little bit. We've learned that a new roof and windows to make it a watertight structure is going to be at least $5 million, perhaps more. We've learned that remediation of asbestos, mold, lead paint, that's probably going to cost another $5 million. So we're looking at $10 million before we even start addressing the structure of the building. Now, this is a 73-year-old building. Walls are crumbling in places. We know that it's going to absolutely need a new HVAC system. What they have just is not adequate. We know that it's going to have to be brought up to code, today's codes, because it has changed hands and it's no longer grandfathered in. So what's that going to cost on top of the 10 million? Well, when you tried to borrow money back in 2018 or get the taxpayers to give you money in 2018, Schuyler said that buying Broadway Middle School was going to be a lot more expensive than the $20 million he suggested adding on to Sunset Pool. So I would tend to believe Schuyler, it's going to be more expensive. So that's going to put us in an additional probably $20 to $30 million range. Now, what could you possibly do to generate that kind of money, the kind of return that you can pay back that kind of a loan? I mean, any partner that you get in with is going to want to have due diligence done, actually find out what it's really going to cost. But what could you possibly put in there that's going to generate that kind of rate of return? The answer is, a casino or a house of ill repute. Those are about the only two things you could put in there. And it doesn't seem that that's on your agenda. I'm very much concerned that the only place you're going to get it is from the taxpayers. And I can promise you one thing, I will be running and there will be a bunch of other people running for the board. And we're going to make this question of, do you want to go ahead with Broadway Middle School or would you like Seaside to get out of it? And with what this is going to wind up costing, I would bet there's not going to be a one of you that's still on the board come the end of June of this year. So I would just suggest all of you bear that in mind because that's truly what's coming. You don't know how much it's going to cost and you don't know how you're going to pay for it. And that's a hell of a thing to do to the citizens of Seaside. That's where you've left us.
All right, Marty, you're up next.
I would also like to echo the sentiments of John. I agree with him totally. I don't know how we got into this mess, but it certainly is a mess. I am disappointed that the board did not heed the vote of the taxpayers, but went ahead and approved the purchase of the middle school. It is clear over the last 5.5 years of Schuyler's administration that he really doesn't know much about running a pool. Sorry, Schuyler, but that's just the way it is. The newly appointed members were all hand-picked so that they would go along with his ridiculous idea of buying the middle school. If the middle school is a condemned building and the district doesn't want it, the school district, I don't know why the citizens of the recreation district would want it. My hope is that those members of the board will be replaced in June and this board's election before any more damage is done. John Houston makes a huge point when he talks about the millions of dollars that are going to be needed. Celeste, I know that you have been involved with the recreation district for quite some time, because I remember you bringing Lucy in for swim lessons in 2002 when I was working at the front desk. But I know that many of the other board members, the other 3 women who were handpicked, really don't have much to do with the recreation district, perhaps recently, the last few years, but not like me, who has been involved with the district for about 20 some odd years, having interviewed Mary Blake back in 1995 and 6, when she was the general manager. So I am very disappointed with the board. I just don't know what else to say, except I'm very concerned that we went ahead and are going to be purchasing a building. I don't know. It's kind of like, I got a bridge to sell you, Anyway, there you go. Oh, and I have a quick question. Are we going back on lockdown or are we going to be opening on Monday? Can you answer me quick, Schuyler?
I'll answer you if the board vice president asks me to. Mike, are you okay with me addressing Marty's question? I will be talking about that later in my report.
Let's move on. You could talk after the meeting with that information.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll just tune in later then. Thank you.
All right, next up is Patrick Duachek.
Hi, good evening. I just have a couple questions about the financials. I'm concerned on how you lose revenue. We had, more specifically in the youth program, you had summer camp revenue of November of $17,620. In December, the same revenue dropped by $5,800. Same thing with Kinder Camp Explorers. We had $14,900 in revenue. In December, it drops down to $9,000. The total loss of revenue of over $11,000, and you're only showing $1,500 in refunds. So I'm just wondering, where did the revenue go? Another thing on the budget I've asked before is, how is the receipt and spending of the COVID funds as accounted for? I believe it was mentioned that it was nearly $168,000 in COVID funds, and I don't see any tracking or how that is being spent. And in spending money, the budget committee allocated $150,000 to the building fund for fiscal year 20 and 21. You moved $84,000 from networking capital to the building fund. Shouldn't there have been a supplemental budget meeting to do that? You've utilized $50,000 for an escrow deposit on Broadway Middle School. You've written checks to AWE Environmental, Klosh Group, and Morris and Hirschfield. And shouldn't those funds be drawn from that building fund? The building fund shows zero in expenses. And I know we've spent money on the building, and why isn't it drawn on the funds that were allocated for that? And in speaking of the budget, I know this is minor, but I don't remember line items for like coffee and burritos. So why do we write checks to the Stand in Seaside Coffee House? There could be a perfectly good explanation. I just can't find it. And the same thing is, why does Sunset Empire write checks for cash? We've written almost $1,000 in checks for cash. And with an $80,000 new software package, shouldn't our spending be allocated to a line item in the budget? I mean, as we see expenditures, shouldn't the average citizen be able to look and see that if you spent, if you wrote a check for Klosh Group or Morris and Hirschfield, shouldn't it show that that went, towards the building fund or towards inspections or whatever? And I know your advisor said you don't even have to listen to public comment, much less respond to it. But it would be nice to get an answer from one of the board members regarding these expenditures. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was the end of what I had for public comment, unless there's someone else that would like to offer public comment from the audience. Okay, Mr. Vice Chair, hearing none.
Okay, we'll move on to correspondence.
Mike, before you start, is it okay if I just say something?
The chair recognizes Erica Marshall.
I just would like to address the rhetoric about us having no experience with the district. I just feel like it's completely incorrect. And for the record, I've lived in this community my entire life. I mean, I learned to swim in the pool. I was on payroll coaching the Start Smart Sports. My kids went to the preschool. So just because maybe, we're not seen in the pool at all times does not mean we don't have experience with the district. And I just really think that rhetoric needs to stop. It's really unfortunate, it's divisive, and it's completely unhelpful.
Thank you, Erica. Moving on to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence, Schuyler?
We have no correspondence that the board has not already received.
Okay. Thank you. We'll begin the review of financials for December 2020. You folks, any questions regarding the financial reports for last month? I have my copy in front of me. I have reviewed it, and I'm satisfied personally satisfied with this more. I would welcome your review, fellow directors, and a motion to approve the financials reports. That would include, we also have a check registry. Usually we go through the revenue and expense report first. Skylar, do you have anything to point out on the revenue report that's significant to you?
Well, I think the one thing that stood out to me, I guess, is that somehow we're halfway through this fiscal year. And I think overall, as we've talked about before, the district is in strong financial shape. I think, unfortunately, our financial shape is even better than it typically is at this point in the fiscal year because we haven't been operating as normal. And so since our programs typically operate at a loss, or we subsidize our programs heavily to provide more services to the public, right now our budget is in strong financial shape. And I do recognize that that's not really in our mission, and we're hoping that we can get back to what we define as our new normal in serving the public.
Thank you. Celeste, do you have any comments on the financial reports?
Yeah, so it looks like, so I noticed the revenue for taxes looks like it's attributed. So does that mean tax revenue came in? Is that an actual at this point? So that's one of my questions.
Yeah, that's accurate, Celeste. Okay. That's tax revenue received, and it's actually more than we budgeted for. I think the county informed us, I want to say a few months ago, that we would probably be receiving more than they expected, just because of the dynamics that influence that. But yeah, we've received a healthy amount in that area.
Great. And then I did notice, I did some of my own analysis, and it looks like, to tell you the truth, it looks like we're on track for if we continue under the COVID spending levels, it looks like we're on track to come in under budget. So I appreciate your staff's conservative stance. I do have some questions about the attribution of some of the building costs and where those are showing up. So that's one thing. I also do have questions about the PPP costs. I know that sometimes, because that isn't officially booked as revenue because it's not secure until it's forgiven. I don't know how the PPP funds are coming through to SEPRD, but I know for my business, that's how it does. We book it in a different way. So it would be great to get some clarification about how some of both the PPP funds are being booked, and also some of the building expenses, I think would be helpful. And my final question is I would like to get an update about a supplemental budget, since we are 6 months through the year at this point, and sort of what we might anticipate as a schedule for a supplemental budget, particularly with consideration that the new building is going to clearly have significant impact on our overall budget.
Great questions. Thanks, Celeste. I'm going to invite, I know Marcus is on the call, and he's prepared to chime in because I think he can offer a little bit more insight onto where some of those funds have been allocated right now. I think I'll speak on the supplemental budget side. We are preparing that supplemental budget. It's a new experience for us. Again, in my almost 6 years now with the district, we've only had to do a supplemental budget once. And this is a completely different animal, because on that supplemental budget, we were changing one budget instead of probably a handful of budgets. So I think our goal is to have the supplemental budget prepared either in February or March, but there is some benefit, as we understand from working with other municipalities, government agencies, in perhaps waiting. And that is that we wouldn't have to have multiple supplemental budgets, and we'll have a better sense of, I think, the financial position of the district later in the fiscal year. But Marcus, I know you're on. Are you able to unmute and address either that or Celeste's other questions?
Yes, thanks, Skylar. The supplemental budget, after talking with the state of Oregon, And with our auditor, it was recommended that we do hold for the time being, just until we're 100% sure on the COVID trend. And so, or the best of our ability on the COVID trend, because state law mandates that we have to do a supplemental, but it just needs to be in our current fiscal year. And per the auditor and talking with the state, they're recommending that all agencies hold to do their supplemental until closer to the end of the fiscal year, to ensure that they don't have to do multiple supplementals because of the requirements that are associated and the process that's associated. It does end up being about a month or two long process. And so if we don't do it correctly by the end of the year, then it does cause some issues. And so trying to be able to project adequately to the end of the year means that, we can definitely, we have some projections in place, but we're just wanting to be conservative and ensure that we are, in fact, not having to try to rush and do a second supplemental last minute at the end of the year to be in compliance. As for the where are some of the building expenses coming from, I did discuss with our auditor, who recommended that at current, that those come out of contracted services for administration. And so those expenses are coming out of there. We did create the line item that was for the escrow account in accordance with our auditor's recommendation. Those will, we can ultimately make those adjustments if needed or if desired to reallocate those in addition to the supplemental, so that they do show up differently if desired by the board.
Yeah, because I think that is interesting, Marcus, as I recall, I think the earnest money was going to be reimbursed through the SDAO flex lease. And I'm just curious about how that's going to hit our books, if that is still the case.
Yes, so we did receive the reimbursement, and as such, I am still working with our auditor to fine tune how that all will fall into our books, just to make sure that for next year, when we complete the audit for this current fiscal, that our auditor is well aware, but also that he agrees and it meets his desires for us to present that in accordance with public, what we're required to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Celeste. Sue, do you have any questions about the financials?
I talked to Skylar about like a week ago with about a dozen questions. And the only thing I can't remember is what you were going to get back to me on. I think it might have been the foundation budget. So other than that, I have no questions.
All right, thank you. Erica, do you have any questions on the financials?
No, I think most of mine were answered by Marcus just now.
Yeah. Thank you. My only comment is I know there's a number of questions regarding our budget with the acquisition of the school, on where some of the money is or where it's coming from. I suggest some of our listeners and contributors, such as Mr. Duacek, to make an appointment with Skylar sometime when you can sit down and go over some of these details with Mr. Runkle and staff as necessary. Is there a motion to approve the financials?
I'm sorry, I have one more discussion item for the board. So I appreciate, Marcus, your explanation and the research that went into talking about delaying the supplemental. I would just pose to the board and maybe we can discuss. I do have some concern about, we have a big new financial thing that is a sure thing. I know COVID still leaves a lot of unsure things on the table, but we do have the sure thing of the building itself. And I do have some concerns about our fiduciary oversights with and how we meet our fiduciary duties without having visibility to that portion of the budget, particularly since it's so big at this point.
Yeah, and I also think Celeste, I mean, one of my comments with COVID is that I think that it has been quite a while. Like I feel that we've seen the trends over at least a few quarters that could maybe give us enough of a picture even in that regard.
And I wouldn't mind hearing staff feedback about that too, if that's okay, Mike.
I'm okay with that. And would you like that from Skylar or Mr. Runkle?
Either.
I'll share. Marcus, feel free to jump in. I think again, we're at the mercy, at the discretion of the board. So if the board would like us to move forward sooner than later, I think we can work on that. There's a lot going on with wrapping up end of the year reporting information, as well as some of the other financial duties. And we are starting to prepare the budget for next fiscal year, as you'll hear a little bit more about in a few minutes. But again, this is at the discretion of the board, and this is uncharted territory for both myself and Marcus too. We haven't acquired a building like this. We've never been in a COVID year where we got, a significant amount of money from external sources that we weren't counting on. So a lot of this is new, and we are just kind of relying on the expertise of those we can find around us. So the Secretary of State's office, the auditors, and other government agencies. But again, the board's discretion supersedes those opinions. So if the board would like us to move forward with more information or with a supplemental budget, we will do our absolute best to work towards that goal.
Would it be fair to ask staff to, I'm curious if this was part of the discussion. So I appreciate the rationale for the delay in light of COVID, just because there's so many unknowns. So I appreciate that rationale, and that would be fine. But I'm curious if that guidance was given with consideration to this new purchase and this new project. And I'm just curious about what best practices for creating supplemental budgets in light of sort of a major acquisition like this.
That's a very good question, Celeste. The information was presented solely based off COVID. It was not based off the acquisition. Obviously, we've been in talks with our auditor in regards to the acquisition to make sure that we are doing everything appropriately and ensuring that when this, because I want to preface that we are always constantly working on the supplemental. It's an ever-flowing document at this point. And so we're trying to ensure that we're meeting state requirements as well as what the auditor's recommendations are, because the auditor is looking at it more of the acquisition piece as well, and ensuring that that part is adequately put in there and how it's going to look on our books in comparison to everything else we already have on our line items.
So would it be reasonable then, Marcus, to either to go back to SDAO or talk to the auditor about sort of best practice just for the acquisition, like if we didn't have, just for the acquisition part, what best practices for a supplemental for a district?
Absolutely. We could talk to both the state and the auditor and find out what that best recommendation is and best practices in regards to that. I know that our auditor has disclosed that they have worked with other municipalities and governmental agencies that have acquired things. And so he seemed very sure on his approach with regards to where everything should be and how it should fall under our books. But I can definitely ask him specifically about the supplemental portion in relation.
I'd be super comfortable with that. So I would suggest that if the rest of the board agrees, I think getting that information about best practice for fiduciary oversight in a situation where there's a major acquisition, I think would be good for our board to get that information from staff.
I would agree, Celeste.
That sounds great to me as well. So if it's okay with the board, maybe we will bring that information back to you. Can we say no later than our February board meeting, or do you want it sooner than that?
Yep, I think that would be great.
February is all right with me. There's a lot of work required right now.
Yeah.
I noticed that Catherine Parker has come back, been able to join us in the meeting, and I will hand the gavel over to her. But I think we might as well reconcile these financial reports maybe before I do that. I did notice in the expense revenue report this month that we still have not received any back taxes, and we still have timber revenue that has not come in too. So there is another $95,000 of potential revenue that will come in on its own due course. Any other questions about the financials? Or is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the financials as presented by staff.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And Catherine votes. So be it. With that, I will hand the gavel over to Catherine Parker, our illustrious Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for my delay. So we are now at review Sunset Park and Rec Foundation financials. Has everybody had a chance to look those over?
Foundation, yes. That's what I heard.
Yes, foundation.
It's good. Scotty, would you like to preface anything here with the foundation report?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And thanks, Catherine. So yeah, I think the board had requested an update on the foundation financials. The way that the foundation is set up, the board, I guess from my interpretation, doesn't have financial oversight over the foundation financials, but I think as a custom, they've had some involvement with the financial position of the foundation. The foundation board also will be reviewing or has reviewed parts of this report, and we have a meeting later this week actually for them to receive the full report. But I know there's been some questions about the financial position of the foundation. And I guess from my position, I think the foundation is in strong financial shape. All things considered, they've been able to grow their reserves in several areas just with the success of some strong events over the past few years through some dedicated volunteers and great partnership. We've also been able to limit, I think, what had been quite a financial impact to the foundation. When I started with the district, we were awarding a lot of scholarship funds, and due to some refinements in that process and the great work of staff, I think the financial impact of those scholarships being awarded has, I guess we're still awarding a lot of scholarships, as you'll see, but I think the total dollar is smaller. We've also added some events that the foundation has done over the past few years, including the golf tournament that's been pretty successful. And then the other thing I'll point out is that you can see on the, I believe it's the transaction report, and also in other places on that document, you can see the foundation's accounting, the foundation financials accounting for holding, acting as the nonprofit for some other community, I guess, activities or projects, such as the Art in the Park virtual event for the mill ponds as the indoor training facility, So that's kind of been a custom of the foundation since its inception in 1998 to serve as the nonprofit holder of some of those funds. So again, I think Marcus and I are available to answer questions, but in general, I would say I think the foundation is in strong financial shape.
Skylar, the foundation book, the profit and loss, et cetera, this is a component of our audit. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Our auditor, part of their contract with the district is to audit the foundation financials, and then we work with them to make sure that our filings with the state and other filings that we need to keep current are done. I think in the past, staff, namely Marcus and Marcus's the staff person that was in Marcus's position before he arrived have done that at times, but also our auditors have provided that service.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Skylar regarding the Park and Rec Foundation financials?
I just wanted to ask a clarification on page 35, what the Sunset Empire Park Recreation District pass-through is.
Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, Sue, that would be the pass-through for scholarships. So at the end of a period of time, the district would essentially bill the foundation for that scholarship reimbursement. And you'll see the reimbursement amount for last calendar year here in just a second if you haven't already seen it. Marcus, is that correct, that pass-through amount?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Any further questions for Skylar or Marcus?
I have a question, not directly to the financials, but I'm just looking at the scholarships and I'm just wondering, so how, in determining scholarships, is that something that the foundation makes? Does the foundation actually parse through scholarship applications, or do staff actually make recommendations regarding scholarship foundations? And I'm just wondering how we are ensuring some equity in the way that those scholarships are distributed to citizens. Like, what is there an application process? How do we just make sure it's a fair process?
Yeah, great question. So the foundation board has delegated scholarship approval and the management of scholarships to staff. And I think we've done our best to insert practices of equity. One thing that I'm proud of is we revised our scholarship process. So now there is an application that scholarship applicants are asked to fill out, and they submit that application and they actually have to reapply every quarter. And that's to ensure that those scholarship funds are being allocated to the best possible place. I can say in the probably 3 or 4 years since we revised this process, and Darren, correct me if I'm wrong, since you're always very instrumental in helping, we've never turned down a scholarship applicant. We've had the funds. Our foundation board is quite proud of working hard to make sure that we have those funds available. We have had to limit some people's scholarship access, but that's not because we didn't have the funds or because of their application. That's because we inserted a policy that scholarship applicants could only apply for scholarship funds on 3 out of every 4 quarters. So that was just to help the foundation make sure that they had enough funds to remain equitable. Let's see, what were the other components of your question that I may not have answered, Celeste? Is that adequate?
I was going to mention just Celeste, as our family has been a recipient of scholarships with Sunset Parks and Rec, and my experience with your process as compared to others, is that it's the checks and balances are really good. Like Skylar said, that you're having to apply each quarter, you're submitting proof usually of, why you need the scholarship, et cetera. So I don't know. I think I actually was really impressed with the process just from a kind of external standpoint.
Thanks. The other thing I should mention, Celeste, that I think is important is we do ask all of the scholarship recipients to volunteer 4 hours per quarter that they receive scholarship funds. And we're very, very flexible and generous with how they volunteer that time. I mean, in a non-COVID year, we would love for them to volunteer their time with us, doing some of our special events or working in an appropriate capacity. But we'll also accept volunteer hours at another community agency. We just really want people to be giving back to our local community in some way. And we'll allow a proxy member of the family to volunteer for them, which works well if there's working parents or if opportunities are limited for whatever reason.
Great. That's great to hear.
I appreciate the feedback, Erica, on the scholarship program. That's great to hear from an outside perspective. Any other questions on either the foundation financials or the foundation scholarship report? Okay, moving on.
Catherine,
yeah.
before I guess I just wanted to make sure that the board noted some of the details of the scholarship report, and just that unfortunately, I think primarily because of COVID, you'll see the numbers in the figures in aid dispersed has gone down pretty significantly in 2020 as compared to previous years. But you'll see that the vast majority of that allocation was for our youth programs. And I think it speaks to the great quality of programs that we have and the work of staff in that area, but also to the need in our community of those families in that area. And then the last thing I wanted to recognize is the other funding sources. So while the foundation does a really good job of generating revenue on their own, we also receive generous support from a CommuniCare grant through Seaside High School. Actually, the city of Seaside, the city of Gearhart, and the city of Cannon Beach have all been really helpful in providing scholarship funds. And I want to thank Darren Gooch, who has gone to those budget meetings and requested those funds. And Darren does a great job of presenting the need to those agencies. The Rotary Foundation of Seaside has always been a great donor, and then you'll see some other funding sources listed. So I think it's important for those agencies that we work with to provide this service get some recognition. And we are anticipating, as we go to post-COVID life soon, that we'll resume our normal programming, and that scholarship need will go back up. And we're hoping actually to provide more funding, because I know there's lots of people in our community that need those services.
Thank you, Skylar.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We do not have Shelley tonight, so old business. The date of the 2021 board meetings. I believe that we had agreed on the 4th Tuesday. Skylar, is that correct?
Yeah. My review of the last meeting is that there was, some discussion about what would be best. I know you want to avoid that 3rd Tuesday because of the school board meetings. And I think the 4th Tuesday would work better from the staff's perspective as far as accounting and putting the accurate figures out there from the end of the previous month. But it was suggested that we should revisit this in January to ensure that the board is all on the same page.
I think the reason that we had asked to revisit it was because Sue was going to move or reschedule or something with your CERT team, yeah. Sue.
I went ahead and did that. So my apologies for yawning. I've been on meetings since 2 o'clock today. And so I am really tired. This is not a good day to do both at once. So, and it's quite a heavy responsibility to lead the community in emergency response and move to this topic as well. So I do apologize for my yawning. But yes, I have, we were supposed to keep the same schedule for January. I did move the meeting to February 16th. And So that is done and won't happen again. And it clears the way so that we can have the fourth Tuesday.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate your efforts on that.
Thank
So
you.
is everybody okay with moving all of our meetings henceforth to the fourth Tuesday?
I'm in favor of that.
Can we, Skylar, do we need a motion for that?
I would
Well,
appreciate that. I would support that. Yeah.
Okay.
Catherine, are
Yeah.
we not on the school board? Are we falling still on the same date? Sorry, I'm not tracking that very well.
School board is on the third Tuesday.
Okay, okay.
We will be the week after, and that was the whole reason for moving it, was
That's what
so
I
that
thought. Okay.
so that we could participate in theirs, and if they chose, they could participate in ours, and our community members can go to both.
And we just didn't implement it in January, and that's where we got off track, right?
Right. There was
Okay.
some confusion because we got off track, but we were waiting to hear if Sue could move her meeting, and then we did not vote on it as of yet. So now that Sue's cleared the way, somebody would like to make a motion to move our meetings, I would entertain a motion.
I will move that we change our monthly meeting date for the Board of Directors of Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District to the fourth Tuesday of the month.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. New business, the BMS work group designation. Is that you, Erica?
If it is me, I'd need a little more information.
It has EM next to it.
Skylar.
Yeah. So you had asked for this to be included in January because we wanted to make sure that the work groups that we discussed previously were fitting under the standards of what Eileen had explained, and also kind of designate some a small group from the board to actually serve almost as a subcommittee to kind of work through some of the BMS questions that staff has, and that would be conducted in the appropriate way according to state law, but just to kind of move some of those discussions along.
And Erica, I recall that the idea here, because I thought it was a really good idea, but there was discussion around whether or not if we formed officially a work group around Broadway Middle School planning, that those would be public meetings. And I think we resolved that it would be, and that would be fine.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. So there was that one. And then the other one I had on my list was putting together maybe just one session in the near future, and we could just take volunteers from the board to put together your objectives for the remainder of the fiscal year, because I think that aligns with your performance review, which would also kind of just basically putting together a good work plan that has clear objectives for you as the CEO. So I think there's two parts. Maybe if there's people interested in doing that, we could do that in February, and I don't think it has to be all of us. It could just be a few of us to do that public meeting, to put together Skylar's objectives, and then also maybe an ongoing work group also in public session on BMS.
This would be like a workshop.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's a good idea.
what is the meeting on the 9th of February about BMS?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a kickoff meeting with board and staff and our consultants from the Klosh Group, and that's to kind of ensure that all three kind of parties in that meeting are aligned with the plan moving forward, and it'll be a public workshop, so it is a public meeting. We won't have public comment, but the public will be invited to attend if they want.
Sounds like a logical combination of these two things.
But Erica, I assume it seems like the idea about developing some performance standards is sort of a separate task. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it just is a one-off workshop that we could have in February.
Yeah.
Um,
But it does not need to be the full group if we don't want to. So we could volunteer, and I'd be happy to volunteer to be on that work group.
I'd volunteer. Wouldn't want to be left out.
I was gonna say, maybe we just set a date and then all who can attend. Catherine, I think it would also be good for you to come because you and I originally wanted to kind of look at performance reviews in general, so.
Sounds like it's a group effort.
I can look, let's look at our calendars. So we already have the workshop on the 9th. Do we want to do, I have another meeting on the 2nd, but I could do it if we met at like 4:15, we could go to like 4:15 to 5:30 or 5. Because if we're just discussing that one topic, do we need more time than an hour, hour and a half?
Whatever you think.
Yep. I'm available that day, but I have a hard stop at 5:30 for another board.
Can you tell me again the date, Catherine?
I'm thinking the first Tuesday.
Groundhog's Day, the 2nd.
But if we made a hard, like if we met at 4:15, if that's possible, and just made, you know, like Celeste said, done at 5:30.
Yeah, just as much progress as we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
All right.
So just for clarification, do you want me to label this as a board workshop or a board meeting?
I would make that a workshop.
Okay, if you are going to take official action, then it would need to be a meeting. But if it's just going to be a discussion, then workshop is appropriate.
My understanding is we're more discussing.
Okay.
And then we can take action at our regular meeting.
Yeah.
That okay.
Yes.
Okay, review of the SEPRD social media policy, which was included in our packets on page 39.
39, 40, and 41.
So
I'd like to
Go ahead.
applaud staff. I think it looks like a well thought out and pretty comprehensive social media policy.
Looks good to me.
So while I was standing in line tonight in the freezing cold wind, I had a thought that I wanted to just kind of run by because I have a friend who works for the city of Cannon Beach, and they have social media. And as another government agency, something that she had mentioned to me where they have comments turned off on their posts because it's all public record. So the part that I was a little bit concerned about, Skylar, and maybe I don't know, is the part where it says that we can block people, which I don't believe that we can as a government agency.
Sure. I understand your concern, and I think it's valid. I think the way that we are interpreting this policy and the potential blocking, and I think it should be stated probably that we really would prefer not making it to that point where we had to block a user, but it would kind of be in the same light as a participant was disciplined for violating our patron conduct policy. And if that incident were to repeat itself several times, or if it were to be significant enough, then we would have the capacity to trespass that individual from district facilities, and thereby limiting their access. So I think it's in the same kind of light, or in the same sort of practice. And those instances are pretty few and far between. So I think we would really do our best to work with a person and try to help educate or inform them, or let them know of our policy before we got to that point.
Okay. I think that's fair.
So can I ask two things? One,
Absolutely.
just a definition. What is an RSS feed?
Darren.
Sorry if I can get myself unmuted. RSS feed's basically just a news feed. It's a you don't see RSS feeds that much anymore. It's kind of a little bit of an older earlier internet technology, but it's a link that you can use to sort of aggregate different news feeds and different feeds from alternate sources into kind of a reader kind of setup. So you can see different headlines kind of, cycling in from the different feeds that you're pulling in. Like I said, a lot of people don't really use that, but the vernacular is still in there just because it's still kind of a present thing out in the internet. So clear as mud now.
No, but I mean, so it's like you could compare, CBS to ABC in one link, right?
It's like having CBS and ABC's links, so you're getting all of their headlines in your newsfeed.
Okay.
That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thank you.
You bet.
And then I had I know I asked Skylar this I just have a question on page 44, where you've got that table, and, under harassment, inflammatory, topic unrelated to mission, it talked about deleting the post immediately. And I just simply, having come from a huge Providence, we had a policy where we sent, we notified somebody in Darren's position so that he was aware that this was happening. And then we could delete it. And to me, the idea that it says immediately delete, to me, it means I'm just wanting to make sure that we are being as secure as possible. Because if I had just deleted something rather than inform, then he wouldn't have known that there was a thread of employees getting the same email. So just a question as to that protocol.
Yeah, I think part of the policy is that we are archiving the comments that we get, and we have created a place in our server for those to be stored, and they'll be stored in accordance with public meeting or public record laws or public meeting laws. I'm not sure exactly which law, but that's a great point, Stu. And I think it's important to note that this is kind of evolving. Up until 6 months ago, we weren't about 6 months ago, we weren't storing those because we weren't informed that was part of the law or part of best practice. So since that point, our legal counsel and some other trainings that we went to suggested that is a good best practice. And so we've started doing that just to kind of keep a record of them.
And Catherine, I thought your comment was interesting about whether or not cutting off public comments. Just out of curiosity, I looked at the Special District Association of Oregon's Facebook page, and they actually have comments turned on. And so I'd be curious about that. I'm not familiar with special districts or governmental entities, although I know there's a lot of government entities that I follow that have comments now that I think of it. So I think but I do think that's interesting. But, I would worry about that if we actually turned off comments, that we sort of defeat the purpose of social media, which is, having conversations go on. So
my comment wasn't that I thought that we should. It was
Yeah.
more a question of, are we allowed, the question of, are we allowed to block people? And I think Skylar is right, as long as we're following, because we would, if somebody was harassing us in a building, it would be, they're not following the code of conduct, then it would be the same thing. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Any further discussion on the SEPRD social media policy?
I move we adopt this policy. Would you like me to read the resolution?
Yes, please.
I move we adopt resolution number 2021-01, a resolution of Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District, Clatsop County, Oregon, adopting a social media policy. Whereas the Board of Directors, the Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District, Clatsop County, Oregon, has deemed it appropriate to develop and adopt a social media policy that will guide district staff in their usage and moderating of social media pages. Adopted by the Board of Directors of Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District, Clatsop County, Oregon, this 19th day. I will change that date on the resolution to the 26th day of January 2021.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have the review of the SEPRD media definition. Which is on page 46.
Oh, here it is.
So Skylar, my one question was this, did you have a chance to run this by Eileen?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, this has been quite the process for coming up with the right way to create this policy or information about it. To be honest, and I hope Eileen doesn't get offended, but her counsel or her direction was, I found it to be in some ways opposed to what the link that I cited with the Department of Justice opinion that was issued a few years ago. And that is why the policy or the information that I share with you is worded in the way that it is. I recognize this isn't exactly a strong policy or a strong statement that I'm making, and hopefully it's not confusing to you, but I started writing it thinking that we could create a policy that said this is who's media and this is who's not. But according to the Department of Justice opinion from a few years ago, you may not want to do that as a public board, and it's pretty tricky. And I guess I would say it's gray or it's murky to do so. So I kind of think it's probably appropriate, if you were to ask for my advice, would be to steer clear of creating a policy that might limit who is defined as media at this time, just because I think it's better to be conservative in this kind of area than a policy that's a little too stringent.
And just for clarification, by conservative, you mean that the people, that somebody who says that they're with the media, that we sort of take that at face value, correct? Is that what you mean by that?
Exactly. Yeah, because of that, the way that the Department of Justice opinion is written, and they have several examples kind of, and I wrote a few of them out, but that's just a handful of the ones that existed on there. They basically said that limiting access to someone that identifies as media is is not recommended and is actually against ORS 192-660. So I know we have gone to executive session a lot, and there has been some question about who is media, and I have had some experience, I guess, over the past few months with a person who is identifying themselves as media. They haven't come to any board meetings, but I have concerns that they actually are media. But according to the Department of Justice, at least, limiting their access if they were to want to participate or attend an executive session would not be recommended. I think the board can proceed and adopt a policy if they so choose, but I felt like it was my responsibility to give you, again, the most conservative of the information that I could find.
Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I just want to reiterate, having talked with you, Skylar, you made a comment to remind media of accountability, and that's all we can really do.
Yeah, I do think that's the most appropriate thing, and a reminder to those members of the media that attend an executive session that they can't report on things, but they are there as an accountability piece for the board, as a way of ensuring that the board stays on topic with the reason that they're in executive session and doesn't discuss other things or take official action on that topic. And I also think it should be stated, we haven't had any issues of this as to my knowledge, and I think RJ Marks from the local paper has always respected the rules of executive session. And I don't think the board's desire to explore this as a conversation or as a topic was in response to anything. I think it was just more to find out and be prepared for something that might come about.
Well,
It was something that had been urged by Eileen at our training. And so that's where I think why we explored it. It was definitely not in reaction to anyone.
it's interesting. It's an interesting query. I don't want to change the subject or point any fingers, but when I was watching the videos of the insurrection at the National Capitol a little over a week ago, I was struck by the fact of how many media appeared to be there filming these events as if they were being directed by a film crew of rioters. So it's a very interesting situation right now, just nationally. And we actually have received threats to the district from people who represent others who claim to be members of the media. So it's an interesting problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So as a board, can we agree that we are just going to issue a reminder of media's responsibilities before executive session, or do we want to adopt this policy?
I think we should table the discussion of this policy. I don't think it's really written out as a clear policy just yet.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Okay, moving on. SEPRD Budget Committee and Timeline. Skylar?
Yes, so thanks, Catherine. As you know, and as I mentioned, it's kind of hard to believe, but we're starting preparations for the next budget process in the fiscal year, and kind of laid out our steps to the board here in this memo. I know most of you are probably familiar with the budget process after having either served on the board previously or on the budget committee, but just wanted to share the typical timeline by which the budget is created, and also see if the board wants to continue the custom of having the budget committee meetings to occur at those April and May meetings. And in the past, we've done them at 6 p.m., which means that the board meetings have to be conducted pretty quickly. So if you decide to alter that format, that's totally up to you and at your discretion. But I think it's important for us to kind of have that information for budget committee candidates beforehand and to make preparations for that. And then at that May meeting is typically or hopefully when the budget committee would approve the budget, and then the board would adopt the budget in their June meeting and enact the resolution that is necessary for that. And I also wanted to share, as I pointed out, right now, all of the budget committee members have termed out, with the exception of 2, Amber Clyde and Patrick Duacek. I haven't interacted with those folks to gauge their interest, but I can at the board's discretion. Typically, when we have vacancies, the district staff would take responsibility for advertising those vacancies and accepting nominations. Usually it's pretty simple nomination process, but it could be changed. And then bringing those potential budget committee members back to the board for their, I guess, approval or selection. And that would probably need to happen at the March meeting, which is, it was supposed to be March 16th. I think it'll be March 23rd now. Sorry, and I just gave you the wrong dates because I was thinking about the 3rd Tuesday, not the 4th Tuesday. So I'll have to get that in my head. So some things for you to consider. And if you want to make changes to how the meetings go or to the process of recruiting budget committee members, I'm happy to take that input from you.
I would think that maybe we would want to move the budget committee meetings back a little bit further, just because we don't seem to be able to get our meetings done quite that quickly. Maybe 6:37. Any thoughts?
I understand what you're saying. We've averaged 3-hour meetings lately.
I know.
Yeah.
We keep trying.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts on timing?
I agree with you, Catherine.
So I'm thinking 7, honestly, would be the best.
7 is reasonable, and most public meetings in the evening begin no later than 7.
As far as the process, I think we can leave it up to staff to advertise for those open vacancies. I think I'm trying to remember back in the day when I was on the budget committee, I think I just had to submit a letter of interest. Does that sound kind of like what you're doing now, Skylar?
Yeah, that's typically what we would do. The letter could come, it could even be a simple email that says, I want to be on the budget committee, something like that. We haven't done, I think we have done interviews in the past when we've had more applicants than positions available, but there's also been other times where it just worked out where we had the right number of applicants and we were just able to, the board decided to just appoint all those that applied.
So we will have 3 vacancies if the other 2 accept the positions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I would suggest that we just advertise and see how much interest that we get, and then do maybe a quick interview with, if we have more applicants than positions, 10-minute quick interview.
Okay.
I agree.
And I can't recall, do we have a position description for that role, including what, it might be nice to have just a 1-page position description that describes, maybe some candidate skills or experience that might be helpful.
Yeah. I don't think we have one, but I agree that would be good. Maybe could I try to draft something and send it to the board for their review?
Yeah, I think that would be great, and that would help in recruiting if we're going to recruit candidates. Because I think at least for me, it was I sat on the budget committee, and then applied to be on the board. And so I think it is a good introduction. And so I think it would be nice to get some candidates that actually have some background in reviewing numbers and asking good questions so that it's a meaningful budget committee.
I would
And
agree.
do we know that Amber and Patrick have agreed to stay on?
I haven't asked either of those folks, Sue. I felt like there was still time for me to get that information, but I will if the board asks me to take that information.
Yes, please.
Sounds good. I will report back to the board, and I just want to review the changes. So the staff will advertise the vacancies. They'll create a one-page or so job description, and then we will plan on having our budget committee meetings following the board meetings on those dates, the fourth Tuesdays of those months at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think you got it. Thanks, Skylar.
Thank you.
Turning it back to you, Executive Director report.
Okay. Thank you. Seems like every time we meet, a lot has happened in the previous month or so since we've discussed this, but obviously, unfortunately, our county moved back to extreme risk. And as such, we had to close the pool in the Bob Chisholm Community Center again. We did find out today or late yesterday that while our county is going to remain in extreme risk for the next couple of weeks, there is some latitude apparently in the guidance from the Oregon Health Authority where indoor recreation facilities and indoor pools and some other venues that had been restricted in extreme risk might be able to operate, but the guidance has changed as far as what our capacity is and what some of the requirements will be. We're still waiting for some more details to come out and hoping that that comes out. Well, it would have been great to have it yesterday or today, but as we get that detail information, we'll make a decision about the next 2 weeks. I think there's some significant concerns that we have about potentially reopening with a much limited capacity. But we also have to balance that with our desire to serve the public and have the pool and our other facilities open as we're able to. So we're kind of in a little bit of a wait and hold pattern as far as COVID. I would say our emergency childcare.
Tyler,
Yeah.
just before you move on, the state hasn't given any indication on a release date for the new information.
They haven't. Basically, the information that we got lumps indoor gyms and fitness centers and pools in with a lot of other indoor establishments like museums, aquariums, indoor restaurants. And so it's really hard to figure out how the guidance applies to us. We know that we would be permitted to operate because we have a facility that's over 500 square feet, and that's what the guidance says. But it also says that we can only have up to 6 people at a time or 6 participants at a time, and that we can only have the minimal amount of staff in the building that we need to operate. And that's tricky for us because we typically have extra lifeguards around because of the way that the lifeguard rotation works, and we have had 2 people at our front desk most of the time, kind of helping with the check-in process and screening participants for COVID. And so it's, like I said, I think it's a little unclear, and we're also unclear if we're able to operate some of our other aquatic programs besides lap swim, like our fitness classes and swim lessons, private swim lessons, and swim team, because if we can't operate those, that kind of changes the financial picture for the district. Those are helpful for us to earn a little bit more revenue as opposed to just lap swim, which doesn't necessarily generate a lot of revenue for us. And it's 6 total people. So even though we have 6 lane lines and we've typically filled all those lane lines with swimmers, if we filled all of those lane lines with swimmers, then we couldn't have anybody in the learner pool. We're kind of just balancing if this is right. So yeah, thanks, Eric. I mean, I hope that answers your question, Erica. We asked for more guidance and we were told more guidance or information was coming today. And at least as of before the meeting, I hadn't seen it. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some more information soon.
Okay.
As far as the other updates I wanted to share, obviously, I think it's been well publicized and shared with the board, but the transaction, the property sale, Broadway Middle School did close on Friday, January 15th. It was, I think, a really awesome day for staff and board and for our community to celebrate that experience and that going through. I know that there's a lot of work ahead and that really kind of the fun is just beginning, but I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. I want to share some updates about some things that have happened on the property or in the property. So we've had staff spending a fair amount of time. We have some PRS staff that are not working currently because of our status, and also members of our maintenance team that have been spending their time over in the middle school cleaning and assessing kind of some of the things that were left behind. There's a fair amount of items that were left behind: desks, tables, chairs, lots of kind of old learning instruments and office supplies, paper, a lot of things. So we're kind of what we decided to do is sort of do an inventory of those things and kind of arrange them in a way that made a lot of sense. So kind of moving all of the extra chairs to one of the rooms, moving all the tables to one of the rooms, moving all of the office supplies to one of the rooms. So that's something that's underway. Some of the other things that are happening, we are working with the alarm company to make sure that the building can kind of fit within our best practices of having an alarm system. That's not in place quite yet, but it will be soon. And then today we were actually able to, I think, I don't know if it was finished, but we had our fiber internet was I guess installed, for lack of a better way of putting it, on the property. So that will enable us to have phone service in the building and also internet service eventually once we get to that point. Again, we're still operating some programs over there, just emergency childcare right now, but we have had a lot of interest, as you might imagine, about other programs that could be offered there, mostly on the rental basis. And most of those are gym sports, things like pickleball, basketball, volleyball, indoor soccer. So we're kind of refining our rental process for when the time is right, when COVID allows us to. Again, it's been kind of the board's position, and I'll just state it here that we're going to hold off from making significant changes or investment in the property right now, because we really want to kind of be unified in the master plan and how we work. And that's going to take a few months to sort of flesh out. And I think staff is on board with that plan to work together with the board and getting public input on the best uses of the building and kind of proceeding in the right way. The other item I'll share, and it's been discussed, is that we've at least temporarily renamed the building from the old, the BMS, because it's not a middle school anymore. So we've started calling it the SRC, or Sunset Recreation Center, for right now. And of course, we'll still happily accept a generous sponsor from a community or a business that wants to have it be the business name Recreation Center or something else. But for the time being, we needed something else to call it to help us sort of turn the page. I would encourage the board, if they would like to view the building or look at some of the progress and the updates as far as cleaning and organizing that we've made, to let me know, and I can arrange that for you and be there with you. I think it's really exciting. And I know it's been a lot of work to get to this point, but I'm looking forward to our next steps together.
Skylar, I'd like to set up an appointment, so I'll send you an email.
Yeah, please do.
Skylar, real quick, have you guys rekeyed the building?
Yeah, great question. We haven't yet. It is on our list of things to do. We got, oh man, it was a box of keys, and it looked like when you go fishing and you open the little tin of worms that you get, and the worms are just kind of crawling and sort of all over each other. The keys were everywhere. Levi, our maintenance team, went through the keys and kind of figured out the keying system. I think in the future, in the coming time, we will be rekeying the building, but we're using the old keys right now.
I would just maybe suggest moving that up just because I know from the high school standpoint, just how many keys are floating around in the community from however many years of, because they don't get changed very often.
Yeah, that's something that's on our radar too. Yeah, we're working with a local company to kind of figure out the cost, and yeah, we'll get that done soon.
Tyler, I had a question, I may have missed it, but in terms of like the gym rental situation, I'm just anticipating that, you know, if the school district doesn't open their facilities, that you could get flooded with requests. And, you know, especially if they are indeed going to open indoor activities as of Friday. So I'm wondering what your plan is for that, or if we need to like maybe put together a team to think about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So we've had a lot of discussions internally as a staff about how to handle those requests. We've created a policy or a rental process for accepting those requests. And I think it's been, I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but it's kind of been an interesting thing that COVID restricts a lot of those activities right now. Specifically, some of them by name are called out as being not allowed, but we do anticipate, for instance, if the county were to move back to high risk, then some indoor like basketball practice could occur, so long as it's not, you know, it has to be more like drill work and not necessarily games. It can't be scrimmages either. It has to be kind of individual practice work with social distancing precautions. So I think what I am hoping for is that over the next few days, our maintenance team will finish up their work in the gymnasium spaces, and then we can make sure that those spaces are adequate. And I know it seems like they are, but we want to do our best to make sure that these are appropriate spaces, that everything is in good repair for any rentals, and then we'll start handling those rentals. And I think input from the board is welcome, and this is on kind of new territory for us. So if the board has strong feelings about the rental process or our other kind of policies internal, then I welcome that feedback.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is with, I know like at the high school, for example, they used to have those gates that they would put up for the hallways. And I don't know if any of that kind of material was left behind at Broadway. I don't even know if Broadway had those. So it might be something, you know, if we're only going to allow like gym rental space in terms of utilizing the building until we have more of a strategic plan, then I'm just wondering about access to the other areas and making sure it's secure.
Yeah, they did have those at the middle school, and unfortunately,
they did. Okay.
that was one of the items that they did not leave us.
Yeah.
So we have Levi, I know, is thought long and hard about that, and he's worked on either some alternative solutions to kind of limit access to other parts of the building, or just perhaps buying some of those kind of collapsible gates that they have.
Yeah. I mean, once a gate's there, I doubt anyone's like scaling it to get through, but you never know. So, okay. And I do think that probably in terms of like contact sport, I would assume that would be reviewed soon by the state. So again, I do think you'll probably get a lot of requests here, because you're going to be this is going to be one of the only spaces in the county that is available for people.
Yeah, I think we're in kind of a unique position for sure. And it's going to kind of put our system and some of our staff to the test right pretty quick to make sure that we're got everything lined up. But I'm pretty confident in our staff's ability. I know Darren's on the call, and he's kind of taken charge of our rental program for facilities at the Bob Chisholm and at the on Broadway Field for the last few years. And I think we've had enough conversations that I feel like we're in a good spot. I think now we just need to a few opportunities to kind of swing the bat and work out the kinks, the rust, if you will.
And then the
Having-
9th is, sorry, I was just gonna say the 9th is coming up, so it could also be something.
Yeah, I'm hoping
if-
that's something that we can talk about
Yeah.
as a big group. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that having rented the Bob Chisholm and the Mary Blake, I think your process as far as that goes is great. So I can definitely see that translating over to the Sunset Recreation Center.
Thanks. I'll just move on. So Marcus had a great conversation with our auditors today. And if you don't mind, I'll pull up his message. We have received, the auditor said we've received everything that was requested and hopefully have the final report to us within the next month or so or less. There's just been lots of challenges with the audit process with some of the restrictions in place with COVID, some of our accounting software, and then just lots of other challenges. But our auditor is on board with our timeline and process, and he's looking forward to completion of the audit. So we'll be hopeful maybe that in the February meeting, we'll have it presented to you. And if not in February, then in March.
Thanks, Skylar.
The other last update I want to share, and if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Because I'm really proud of the work of Melissa. Most of you probably know that we've done an annual report for the last 3 years, and it's a way of providing a really great mechanism back to the community to show what we feel like is the impact of the district and who we've been able to serve. Prior to this year, I've always compiled the report, and I think my graphic design skills and other design skills, as well as marketing sense, is subpar compared to Melissa. So I'm really happy with the product. I know I sent it out in the packet, and we've just tried to distribute it pretty wisely, but you can see a number of important updates in here. Facts and information. This is kind of standard that we always have in the board or in the annual report, just to kind of provide an overview to folks if they haven't heard of the district or aren't familiar with what we are and how it works. Some really important program statistics that frankly, I'm just so proud of our staff for working through, especially given all the challenges of COVID. One thing that Melissa did this year that I really appreciated was getting some, testimonials from folks that have used our services. So we have one from a person that's used our youth programs heavily, and then a beach wheelchair program participant, and then some other highlights on the back. So I think it's a really terrific document, and I'm really proud of Melissa and the work. But more importantly, I guess for me and for the board, is it allows us to kind of turn the page from 2020 to what we hope will be just a really awesome 2021.
Very nice work.
Really
Yeah,
nice.
I see Melissa's name, so thank you again, Melissa, and thank you for your many talents. That's it for my report, unless there's questions that the board has.
Anyone have questions for Skylar?
I'm all right for now. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Mike.
Well,
Anyone else?
I just appreciate the work that went into this.
Truly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Skylar, I was gonna say, with all the COVID restrictions and like the literally constant changing guidelines, I think you guys have just really done an outstanding job. So, and I know it's not easy, so I hope that everyone can appreciate, the challenges.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're exactly right. I was went on an admin call with ORPA today, our state association, and it was all of the agency leaders typically that are on that call, and so many of our counterparts across the state, not necessarily for their own choosing, some for their own choice, just haven't haven't really been able to operate at all, have only been able to have virtual events or no events at all, have had to take some pretty significant drastic measures. And I'm happy and really proud of our staff and the work that we've been able to do. It's been a challenging year, I think, for almost every business, professional, agency, nonprofit that I know of, but I'm glad that we were able to do some good in some trying circumstances.
Absolutely. Anyone else have questions or comments for the executive director?
I just want to thank Skylar for keeping things moving. Got a big nut to crack with the Broadway Middle School, and I know there's a lot of excitement, but there's a lot of responsibility for the board and for the staff as well to follow through and shepherd in the new age. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Upcoming calendar items. The SDAO conference is on February 3rd and 4th. I have signed up. I will not actually be able to attend on those days, but I did notice that they will allow you to view their conferences virtually after the fact. So if anybody else is in the same boat as myself, I highly encourage you to sign up.
It's good to know. I am in the same boat and I didn't sign up, so I'll check that out.
And it's free.
Yeah.
I am signed up.
I'm signed up.
Wonderful.
It'll be different, but
Yeah.
you know, it seems like really
Hey, are you all there? Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Skylar.
Darn it.
We can hear you.
We can
Having
hear
a
you,
virtual
Skylar.
conference will be different and may enable many people to actually attend who might not otherwise be able to attend. Is it what is the cost of the
Can you hear
conference
me?
doing it this way?
Mike,
hear me?
it's free. Yes, Skylar, we can hear you.
I hear you, Skylar.
I do too.
Your audio.
There you go.
No. Are we good?
He cannot hear anybody, but we can hear him. I texted him that we can hear him.
I can hear Catherine.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I would.
so my biggest concern is whether or not the recording is going to be impacted. I'm happy to jump in and take some notes in case the audio is compromised to finish us out.
I'm gonna suggest that maybe he
audio.
make somebody else the host.
How do we do that?
Just a second. I'm texting him right now.
Well, he's back on.
Darren's still there.
Sorry, folks. I can't hear anything and I'm not sure what happened.
Maybe you need to reboot your computer.
I'll try that.
I think that's probably what's wrong with my camera, although I unplugged my camera and it still won't see it. My microphone works.
Darren, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Can you help the boss troubleshoot?
Am trying.
Skylar believes the recording is still going, Celeste.
Okay.
Let's just move the meeting forward.
So SDAO conference, yes, Erica, please sign up. It's free. You do not have to attend on those particular days. You can view it all later at your leisure for, I think it was up to a month or some time frame. February board meeting, we move that to the 4th Thursday. And then we have our planning workshop on February 9th.
Yep.
Any else in that upcoming calendar items? Any other further discussion or should we move on?
we can move on if Skylar can hear us. We'll need him for executive session.
Let me see, Skylar's.
I'm afraid to reboot my computer. I would leave the meeting.
Today in a class this morning, I had to reboot 3 times because I literally froze up. So couldn't hear anything. And it was easy to come back in. Just annoying. And I can't wait for Darren to help me with my computer.
Well, it's been an interesting week. I know you've been busy, Sue, with the vaccination.
Yeah.
And I've been volunteering up at Public Health since last year. I've been answering the COVID test scheduling phones, and we're getting a lot of calls about the vaccinations.
Did you get your vaccine?
That's another story. No, I have not been invited to get my shot yet. But that's kind of a personal thing. I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay.
But
I mean,
today,
I got
today
my
was the first
vaccination.
day. Today was the first day that the county had any vaccine to administer, right? For
And-
about a week or so.
Hey, Mike, hold on one second. Celeste, are you now the host?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Skylar's gonna leave and come back.
Okay,
So can you let him in from the waiting room when he,
will do.
thank you.
And it looks like the recording is still running.
I can, yeah. I apologize to everyone who's watching and waiting with us while we work through the tech issues of COVID-19.
I would just say, Catherine, that I think it's a Zoom issue tonight. I've had a couple times my screen glitched out and I couldn't see anybody, but I could hear everybody going on. So I think Zoom's just being a little wonky tonight.
I would actually, yeah, agree with that because I noticed today some of the teachers were having trouble with their Zoom links and they've never had issues with them before. So
Yeah.
I think there could be some bigger issues going on. They've reached capacity.
That's what it is.
Well, I was, Darren, this is Sue. I was telling the group that this morning in a class, I had to reboot 3 times out of Zoom because it would freeze up. That
Yeah.
was a record.
Yeah, that's been happening a lot with folks lately too. Yeah, it's just a lot of users on it at one time is really a drag on the system.
Skylar, are you able to, we can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
us?
hallelujah. Thank you. Sorry. I don't know. I honestly have no idea what happened. So appreciate it. What did I miss?
Nothing. We're blaming
Chit
Zoom
chat.
for it.
Well, that's generous. I appreciate it. All right. Sorry. Did you do calendar items?
We did. We are now ready for executive session. So Celeste, can you make Skylar the host again?
He already is.
Perfect. And then do we have a motion to move to executive session?
I move that the Board of Directors go into executive session for the purpose of conducting deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions pursuant to ORS 192.660, Section 1, Item E.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor?
Aye.
I-
Aye.
Aye. And Skylar, how much time do you think we need for this topic? When should we say we're going to return?
I honestly think that 15 or 30 minutes will be sufficient because we are only allowed to talk about certain things under executive session. So I think it can be very brief.
Let's say 7:45, just because we tend to go over.
Sounds good. All right, folks, feel free to exit the meeting as has been our custom, and I will let you back in as soon as the board concludes executive session, hopefully at or before 7:45.
I'm gonna say, can we take a 2-minute get up stretch break?
Ugh,
Yes, please. Thank you.
I'd like a
Okay.
nap.
Not yet, Sue, not yet.
I mean, I
Okay.
still have to write my minutes for my cert thing.
Okay, we are recording the meeting again, so just letting you know.
Do we have anybody in the waiting room at the moment, Skylar?
Nope. Oh, yeah, one person just popped in.
Okay.
Should I wait to hold folks, or should I just let them in as they come back?
I'm fine waiting until 7:45. It's only 5 minutes. You know, 5 minutes is not the end of the world to me. So let's just, Celeste? RJ, you there?
I love the way Erica's hair moves on that digital background. It's just great. And Skylar's moves too. He doesn't even have any.
I'm gonna
Mike, this is being recorded.
I'm gonna let folks in, and I'll try not
All
to
right.
put that personal
I
mic.
want to see these comments in the minutes. And
Thank you.
Okay, Catherine, everybody has been admitted. There's one person who's still connecting to audio, but it looks like everybody is back in that was in the waiting room.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming back and joining us. We are on the topic of board business. We did not have anything that we needed to vote on or discuss. We will be working on our strategic plan at the upcoming workshop on what date, Skylar, off the top of your head? February
9th.
9th, thank you. So we will move on to board comment. Celeste?
Sure. So having had a chance to look at the 2020 annual report produced by staff, despite it being a really tough year, I want to applaud the staff at all of the great success that they navigated their way through for 2020 on behalf of our community. I think it's really fantastic to see all the great progress despite all the challenges that the year brought. And I'm super excited for 2021 that we have the exciting new prospects that come to us with the new Sunset Recreation Center, otherwise known as the Broadway Middle School.
Thank you, Celeste. Mike?
well, it was a good meeting. I too appreciate all the work staff has been doing, and it was a heck of a year end. I'm grateful to get through it. Looking forward to the remainder of this year. And gee, I wanted you to know that I got new hearing aids about a week and a half ago because I discovered my old ones were not working properly. So I'm appreciating actually better technology than I was afforded before. And I'm thinking, gee, you know, maybe with this technology, maybe I could run again. But I'm feeling pretty good about my hearing aids right now. So, but we all have to stay healthy and keep the district healthy. And that's our work. And I think we have a great team to do it.
Thanks, Mike. Erica?
To be honest, I'm just going to keep it short. I think I spoke out of turn earlier anyway, but so I don't have any other comment.
Thanks, Erica. Sue?
Well, I appreciate what you said, Erica, before. And so I want to echo what she said, because I think the most important thing in 2021, with a new year and with new hope, we need to be honest and people of integrity. You know, number one, all of us were vetted. All of us signed an oath to the Constitution. This was repeated to me when I asked the League of Cities, explain to me about this this swipe at us that we keep getting about not being, that we were handpicked by Skylar. I'm getting tired of hearing that. It's not true. And we were appropriately vetted by the members. And, you know, it needs to be a time, I mean, and exaggerated numbers need to have facts behind them. Because it just scares people. And it's important to be people that tell honest and honest words of integrity, no bullying threats. I am encouraged that 2021 offers us an opportunity to move forward, to come out of COVID. I want to be incredibly thankful to Skylar and his team, because recall that our pool in Seaside, Oregon has at some points been the only pool open in Oregon. That's really a feather in the cap. And there's incredible diligence that goes into every staff member pulling together to make this a success. And that should be honored and appreciated, rather than having darts thrown at us at various times and various points. I hope that as we move forward, that we can continue to eliminate the negative. Somebody wrote a comment to us about how can we help? How can we be of benefit in the community? And I think there's so many opportunities that are going to come about, because we have an incredible gem of Broadway Middle School with so much potential. There are certain concerns, but we will address those as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to honor Stubby Lyons for his dedication to our community. He was a neighbor and a friend of mine and my family, and I miss him. But I am so grateful that we're going to be able to stand up and give him something through Sunset Recreation Center. I think he'd be so excited for what we're doing. He was a man of vision and integrity, and I just want to honor that. So I'm very grateful to be part of this board, and I thank people for their diligence, their hard work, their honesty, and the transparency that we are trying to put forth. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. I would like to again apologize for my tardiness. I missed my opportunity to recognize the SEPRD Employee of the Month, Zoe Manhire. So I would like to just say that I truly appreciate Zoe's positivity and her professionalism. She was always a joy to be around. And I also missed the opportunity to recognize the SEPRD Board Vice President and Secretary, Michael Hinton, for his years of service. So I think that is an amazing achievement, and I truly appreciate Mike's dedication to the Parks and Rec board. I would like to say that I am very happy to put 2020 behind us. I am so proud of all of the staff, from the top down to everybody there that is working as a team to keep us going and to pivot and make these quick changes and adjustments so that we can put forth programming to serve our community. And to echo what Sue said, to be one of the only pools that have been able to open and serve is truly a testament to the dedication of the staff. I am so excited for 2021 and the opportunity to serve our community in new ways. I think this is going to provide some amazing opportunities to bring people together to solve amazing problems, to provide these future visions of what could be for our community and what this cornerstone piece for the heart of our seaside community can be. And I'm very excited about that. So with that, thank you everyone for your service and your time, and meeting adjourned.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, Mike.
I thank you for your compliments. I wanted to share with the board the lovely note that I got from Linda Campbell, who is well known in the community and used to be the art teacher at the middle school. Sent me a beautiful note as a seasonal card thanking the board for our vision. And she's so happy that we have gotten the middle school and looking forward to working with us. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Catherine, for your work.
Thank you, Mike. Everyone have a great night. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.